Hello and good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to the Fresheye Marketing Tea Time Talks. And thank you for coming on. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get going. The call will last around 1 hour, and it is an interactive session. We will invite you to ask questions throughout the call, and we will answer them afterwards if we have time. And just so you know, all participants on the call are on mute at the moment. Doesn't mean you can't ask questions. If you'd like to ask a question at any time, please hover over the green bar at the top of your screen, click on the chat button, and send your question to Laura, who will be collating all the questions for us today. We are recording the call for the benefit of those who haven't been able to join, and also for those in different time zones. Throughout the call today, you will hear from Jenny Rogers, Fresheye Marketing's Head of Communications, Dorothy Coombs, who is a Fresheye founder, and Tor Gardner, who is Head of Marketing for BT Wholesale. To get going on the call, I'd like to pass over to Jenny Rogers.
Thank you, Nick, and hello to everyone. If this isn't your first Tea Time Talks, then a very warm welcome back. I hope you've got your cup of tea and your slice of something nice next to you. And if this is your first Tea Time Talks, then an even warmer welcome. It's really good to have you here. We're really pleased you could join us, and we're looking forward to finding out if this format of a webinar actually works. We've always had such good feedback from our previous Tea Time Talks, and the only area of improvement we've ever had is that those who couldn't attend were gutted, and they really wish there was a way to share the experience with them. So we decided to test this format out instead and see if the method of communication is still as effective and more efficient, because it's going to fit into more people's schedules. So let's try it and see, shall we? And again, if you're new to our Tea Time Talks, well, what are these all about? Well, it's all about bringing some fresh thinking to our own work here at Fresheye and then sharing what we learn with you. We proactively go out there and we seek out new thought leadership, new ideas, new insights into the world of marketing, and we bring them back to you over a cup of tea normally. From NLP to how marketing in Asia Pac differs to Europe to understanding insights better and deeper, we've brought you lots of tools over the last couple of years through our Tea Time Talks, and so far the feedback is that you've learned something new every single time, which is great. And since the last time, through all the conversations we have with you as we're working with you, we've been hearing some of the same sorts of things about life in marketing this year. We've heard that it's busy, it's noisy, and sometimes it's overwhelming. And ultimately, it's just not as much fun as it used to be. So this time, we're sharing something that we've been working on for ourselves and recently been doing with some of our other clients too. It all stems from some of the thought leadership that we discovered last year. It's one key idea that we think will save you time, and we've got at least 3 different ways that if you use this key idea, it can reduce the noise and overwhelm for you. And also through this one key idea, we think your contribution to the business will stand out much more because we have evidence that's already happening. But before we get to that, I want to set a bit more context for this session. When you registered, we asked you for the top 2 things on your mind, and thank you very much for telling us those things. And what you told us was absolutely fascinating. It's almost a 20-80 split between strategic issues that are worrying you and tactical issues that are absorbing your spare time and energy. For example, the sort of strategic things on your mind are doing more effective marketing with the same or less budget, increasing sales engagement, demonstrating the effectiveness of marketing in B2B services, always a challenge, and supporting each other in challenging times. That was a theme that came out a lot. You're a caring bunch, aren't you? And yet, the sort of tactical things that are on your mind using social media in B2B marketing, getting more effective B2B campaigns, increasing channel awareness, increasing lead generation and reducing lead time, partner incentives, proving return on investment on non-sales related marketing, the list went on. It was a long list, so thank you again for telling us those things. And I can only imagine that some or all of you are probably ringing true for you right now, for everyone on this call. And I guess there's some comfort in the fact knowing that you're not alone. These things are occupying all of us. And you only have to Google the top B2B marketing trends or insights for 2013 and the same themes top the charts. Where is social media's place in B2B? It's the eternal debate that's been going on for a couple of years now. But in the last year, things seem to have shifted. A lot of B2B are beginning to engage with social media. But is it still right just because everyone else is doing it? It doesn't mean it's going to give you a good return. How do you know if it's right for your B2B campaign? Second big theme is working with sales. How to move the relationship faster and stronger to working with sales rather than sometimes the perceived function of working for sales. Improving that collaboration between marketing and sales is crucial this year. And lead nurturing. reducing the lead time from marketing activities to a sale in B2B, and using every opportunity in the sales cycle to nurture future leads. Where can marketing work in the sales cycle to reduce that lead time? Maybe through brand reinforcement, engaging more closely or personally with the customer. Working with sales to nurture leads as well as generating them is where marketing is going. And I'm guessing this is all sounding quite familiar. So how do we even begin to address these trends, these issues that are consuming so much of our time, around 80% of our time? Well, it's at this point that I want to introduce the piece of thought leadership that we uncovered last year. There's one key idea that we think can make a huge difference. The thought leader is a man called Simon Sinek, and you may have already heard of him. He's traditionally thought of as a motivational speaker, and he has a lot of commentary on social and business issues. He's pretty sought after, and who I suppose is in a similar vein to Malcolm Gladwell. He comments on patterns that he sees in business and life, and he shares it with the world. In 2009, he wrote a book called Start with the Why. And in the same year, he was invited to speak at TED, you probably know, a really prestigious thought leadership event. And his video speaking at that TED conference is still the 7th most viewed video on TED.com. He's also very active in the non-for-profit world, and he's particularly attached to working on projects that help women-owned businesses become successes. So we like him. And what's his very simple idea all about? Well, it explains why some individuals and some businesses become memorable, iconic, and break the mold. And the same idea explains that sometimes, no matter how good the product is, it can be impossible to market and sell some things. His idea is based on what he calls the golden circle. He contends that most businesses, most salespeople, and most marketers think, act, and communicate in the same way. He says that everyone knows what they do 100% of the time. He says some even know how they do it. They know the differentiators. They know the USPs. And yet he says much fewer of us know or work out why we do it. Now that's the reason our business, our products, even our roles exist. That's not the profit. Profit is a result. But what's the purpose? What's the reason we're doing it in the first place? Why should we get out of bed in the morning, and why should anyone care? And he suggests that by focusing on the what, we get predictable results. And that's great. We all like predictable results. And yet it also brings a lot of noise. It can bring overwhelm and so much of that busyness that we're experiencing. So he contends that those individuals and businesses that transform a marketplace, that take a simple product and make it aspirational, they communicate in exactly the opposite way. They start with the why. And that when you start with why, you have a compelling story that makes your decision-making a lot simpler and faster, your prioritization easier, and the engagement of those around you in what you do much, much deeper. He's got an example, and he uses Apple. And he uses Apple because he thinks it's easy to understand and pretty much everyone gets it. He says that Apple, with their products, could easily market their products by saying, we make great computers. They are beautifully designed, they're easy to use, and they're user-friendly. So do you want to buy one? And they'd get some good results. But they don't do that. Instead, they say, everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo and thinking differently. That's why we're here. How do we do it? We challenge the status quo by making our products beautifully designed, easy to use, and user-friendly. What products do we make? Well, we just happen to make great computers. Do you want to buy one? Apple's messaging and everything that comes from that, their sales approach, their customer experience, their customer loyalty, their brand, even their employee engagement, is because they start everything they do from their why. And from that, they make decisions. They make prioritizations, and they make investments that are all in line with that why. And when things aren't in line with that why, they just don't do it. So boiled down, Simon's idea is simple. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. He's got a lot of research to back this up. And it's not just anecdotal or even based on sales figures. He also says there's some biology behind this. And if you're interested in knowing more of that, just Google him, watch the various videos he's got on YouTube, or even grab his book. So this idea of people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, really caught our imaginations here at Fresheye. Because when we looked at the trends and the challenges for B2B marketing, it occurred to us that so many of those demands on B2B marketing could be answered by having that consistent, compelling story that a why gives you. A story that weaves a thread throughout everything you do and taking stakeholders, colleagues, and clients along with you at the same time. Basically, spending some time working out why we do what we do and then focusing on the what. which brings me back to those trends and issues that are taking up so much of our time and energy. And yet we're still not enjoying marketing as much as we used to. So if we look at those things and plot them on the golden circle, it becomes a bit clearer as to why that might be. And pretty much it's because we're not focusing on our why. If we plot them on the golden circle, look at where they sit. We're focusing pretty much most things on the what, very, very few on the how, and yet here's a thought. If we as marketers stepped back and spent a little bit of our time on why, what would happen to some or all of those issues? How would we relate to them? If we had our own compelling message for our marketing team, our own role, or the products and services we market, could we more easily work in collaboration with our sales team? Could we more easily judge where our B2B marketing could work using social media? Could we better nurture leads and reduce the sale lead times? How much time could we save? How many mistakes could we avoid? How much simpler could our decision-making be? As marketers, what would happen if we apply a why to some of the things that are taking up our attention? I'm now going to hand over to Dorothy, who's got some great examples of what happens when you apply a compelling why to some of these marketing issues that are on our minds right now. And she'll also introduce us to our guest speaker. So with that, I'll hand over to Dol.
Thank you, Jenny. Yes, getting to our why changed everything for us at Fresheye. We're so passionate about it because we know it really works. In fact, we spent a lot of time over the years, as some of you know because you've been on the journey with us, getting really clear about who we help and what we help with. But we just felt that something was missing in helping us make all the right decisions about what we do and how that adds up to something. So when we came across last year the work of Simon Sinek, it all made complete sense to us. The team here at Fresheye spent a lot of time reflecting on what our why might be, and then we suddenly realised that our why had always been there, we just hadn't articulated it before. Our why stems from our belief that most organisations could sell more things to more people more often and could do more with their marketing. Our moment of wonder was in realising that we do what we do because we want to help our clients to sell more and to do more with their marketing. Helping them make a step change in their marketing activity, supporting our clients as individuals to give more and more value back to their bosses, doing more with what they already have. Please don't think this is a sales pitch. We're unashamedly a bit evangelical about the difference your why can make to your decision making, because it's sped up efficiencies as ours, and including stakeholder management. There are so many things. Let me give you just three benefits that Fresheye has seen from them, all of which have been huge. The first is our clients understand what we do better. We have more frequent and deeper discussions because they know where we can help them. They've told us that this is much more valuable than knowing just what we do. The second thing that we've seen is that everything we invest in is filtered by whether it will help us to help our clients sell more and do more. If it doesn't, we don't. And the third thing is we measure, like most companies, how motivated and happy our people are. And we know that our team are happier because they're all aligned to a single purpose, and each team member understands and is proud in their role in delivering to our purpose. So it's worked for us. But now I'd like to introduce you to someone who's also benefited from helping her organisation work out their why. Because of this, you'll see from her story she's managed to achieve a huge amount in a really, really short period of time. And I know she's too modest to say it, but I also know that the work she's done here has demanded serious respect and credibility, not only with her peers, but also with the board of her organisation. So she's now going to share her experience with us, so please listen carefully to what she has to say. I know you're going to get something from it. A big welcome to Tor Gardner, Head of Marketing for BT Wholesale.
Thank you, Dot. Thank you very much for the introduction, and it's an absolute pleasure to take part in today's session. As Dot said, I'm Tor Gardner, and I work in BT Wholesale. And it was interesting, really, listening to Jenny at the introduction, talk about some of the challenges that have been highlighted across everyone on this call. And, for us, undoubtedly, we've been through and experiencing still today some of the same strategic and tactical practical issues that, that I know that you guys have also said on the call, doing more effective marketing with same or less budget, making sure that we increase our sales engagement, always improving our ROI, not necessarily relating to kind of the sales activity, but the non-related activity and so on and so forth. But, to set the context for everything that I'm going to talk about today, one of the big challenges that we had within our organization was around how do we absolutely improve that collaboration working with sales? How do we absolutely play a critical part in generating opportunity pipeline and some of the lead and nurturing that supports the brand reinforcement whilst at the same time letting us get closer to the customers. So in the next 10 minutes or so, I just really wanted to share with you some of the practical things that we've actually done to help us understand our why, and hope that hopefully it'll spark some interest and debate for you in your own organizations. I just thought it'd be useful to give you a bit of context about BT Wholesale. I'm not sure how much you know about what we do as an organisation. We're a pretty large line of business within BT Group, and effectively our revenues at 12-13 were in excess of 4 billion. So pretty large contribution to the overall performance for BT. But we work with 1,400 communication providers, and that's across a series of fixed and mobile operators, internet service providers, broadcasters, resellers, infrastructure carriers, and so on and so forth. We offer usual communication services like broadband and Ethernet, from traditional wholesale calls through to IP and hosted capability, and importantly, through our network infrastructure and some of our outsourcing capability. We've actually run and manage services on behalf of some of the large network providers out there like Kcom, Orange, Vodafone, etc. And effectively, we work in line with our global services colleagues in the wholesale arm, which is known as the global telecom markets. We focus absolutely on the UK. And unlike our colleagues in retail and global services, our customers are not the end users, as I said, they're the communication providers. And that's really quite an interesting and complex challenge that we face. It adds complexity to the way that we communicate with our customers, but also the way that, we're actually one step or multiple steps away from quite often the end user. So our role is all about how we enable our customers to be successful, and how the suite of portfolio services and the capabilities that we have within BT, and certainly within BT Wholesale, can help our customers, drive the ambitions of their customers, whether that be in part or whole as an outsource. I just wanted to set the context for a couple of minutes around why we felt we needed to make a change, and importantly the challenges that we were facing around 6 months or so ago now. And like everyone, around the end of Q3 into Q4, and if not more, a few more advanced in your planning, but certainly for us around Q3, Q4, we were absolutely getting our heads around what's our ambitions for the next fiscal, meaning now where we are today in 13-14. And we found a whole series of inconsistencies in the way that we communicate with customers, whether that's collectively across sales, across our products, our bids, our marketing teams. Sales teams were creating, dare I say it, their own presentations on things that they were mixing and matching across things they'd picked up across industry, or whether internally they'd moved from another part of BT. The market has been evolving for us in a wholesale environment for some time, but certainly in the last 6 to 12 months, we've certainly seen a shift where customers, are moving away from siloed portfolio into absolutely that total comps provider, which again, creates opportunities and challenges for us. But within that backdrop of everything that we talk about, we actually had quite a lot of challenges internally within our team, again linking back to some of the things that Jenny talked about. We had last year around a 80% reduction in our resource, which meant that, to be successful, we wanted to do things differently. We needed to make it much more around how do we create a self-serve environment? How do we make sure that consistency does not get lost around the ambitions where we want to be, but at the same time give our teams, our sales teams and our colleagues across the business, the resource that enables them to have that consistent message. We wanted to absolutely focus on what it matters to our customers, but also from a market perspective. As I talked about, some of the challenges and the changes within the market, what was really good is that the evolution of our portfolio from old to new, so traditional to new services, ultimately that we weren't really representing that change in our portfolio and our capability at a market capability level. So So we embarked upon this program during Q4, and it was a collective piece across our portfolio team as well as marketing and sales. But it was all about going back to basics. And the process, as I said, started around Q4 last fiscal, so around December, January time for us. And it was all about developing the specifics about who we are and what we do as a business. We embarked on what we do and how we do it. And I think we did it in a way that probably everyone on this call, and certainly traditionally within a wholesale markets environment, we had a number of workshops. We worked with products and sales and our strategy colleagues, and we really drew on some of the specific research that we'd managed to conduct across the last kind of 12 months or so, working with our customers, particularly in the channel, but across all of our customer base, and understanding from them what was really important from a wholesaler and a wholesaler of choice. But we knew after all of that work, there was still something ultimately missing, similar to what Doc was talking about. And that led to some fantastic dialogue and kind of a step change in the way that we wanted to start approaching our programs moving forward. But a step change in the fact that working with Dot and Helen and, using Simon's research and thought leadership really around, well, why do we do the things we do for our customers? And I won't go into the specifics on the slide, but you can see on there that we've got kind of three areas within the pie. And I just really wanted to give you a sense of some of the thinking we had at the time around how we were trying to absolutely nail why we exist, what we do, and why we exist for our customers. And so at the time we were thinking, is it all about our heritage? Is it about our innovation? Is it about our successes? Is it about the investment we make in that, and therefore what does that mean for our customer? Or was it more about the thought leadership that we bring for our customers? The guidance we can provide our customers, the inherent knowledge from the work that we as wholesaler, but obviously our colleagues in Openreach and others around, the market and how it's evolved over multiple years. And that expertise that our customers can draw upon, which is very unlike other providers in the market. Or the third part, was it more about the way that we kind of drive the passion through the organisation, and therefore what does that mean for our customers to be successful? Again, unlike many companies across industry, operating as a true standalone wholesaler was something of a bit of a differentiator for us. But for us, this is where we absolutely established our why, and this principle about, if you look on the top right, you can see, how we make it possible for our customers. And that became our mantra, and it's our mantra. We say externally on our collateral, and I'll talk you through that on the next couple of slides. But how we make it possible. And we knew this, as soon as we'd established that, we knew that it can work on a number of levels. So for us as an internal organisation, we were thinking about, how do we get people on that journey, making sure that they actually understand their role to play in it. It linked to some of the wider strategic projects that were happening across group for our organisational health. And the way that actually thinking about how we make it possible within that context of what we offer our customers can actually be slightly different to the way we thought about it before. And importantly, from an external perspective, getting that consistency of messages around how we tailor the specific proposition, bid, proposal, or the dialogue we're having with our customers, really challenging ourselves to think, well, how do we make it possible in the context of the dialogue that we're having, or the market changes around TDM to IP, or whatever that challenge may have been. Just want to kind of give you a sense of some of the outputs. I've talked about the processes, the methodology, some of the challenges, but really just wanted to give you a sense of, wow, what have we achieved in the last, I guess, 4 to 6 months effectively. And as I said at the beginning, we had a series of ambitions, external ambitions around how we want to mobilise our customer engagement campaigns and programme for 13-14. We absolutely wanted to always focus, as everyone does, on showcasing our value, how we stuck up against the competition, increasing our presence at channel debates. How do we change perception? How do we make sure that, we are a brand that's recognised today, but today just as much as how do we set the platform and the foundations for moving forward into the future. So part of the programme was actually around some really, really specific deliverables and around the way that we want to represent ourselves externally. So if you're looking at the slide at the moment, you can see a suite of collateral capability, and effectively it focused on 5 key components for any of our designs as we move forward. We always want to maximise these hero words that you can see throughout, because that starts to help us define the why in every single thing that we do, from a language perspective and how we stand out in terms of what we want to say to our customers. The imagery, we wanted to absolutely always make sure that we have our imagery match our why. So you can see some very faint lines. It's very vibrant on the actual collateral itself, but they are lines of possibility. That's representing how we make it possible and how we connect both the visuals to actually the words and the ambition around why we make it possible. And one of the real distinct decisions we made, and this was at a quite strategic level, we made around our capability and the way that we wanted to represent ourselves. So on the bottom right of the slide, you can see four colours, four palettes effectively, and that represents ultimately our four pillars of capability. So our capability around data services, our capability around our voice services, our hosted communication services, and then our managed network services to put a wrap around everything that we do. And ultimately, the colour, the palette wanted to be kind of a refresh for BT Wholesale, but ultimately it wanted to also do something very fundamental. It wanted to align us really back to the BT group palette and make sure for the first time we were represented as part of that overall group function. So ultimately, it's early days. We're now in our Q1. We're in our last month of Q1 at the moment. And, we've launched our integrated access campaign, which is our data services, our suite of connectivity services. We've had a whole series of roadshows that our collective team across our products and marketing and sales teams have been working on, really going out, talking to customers, using the collateral, selling the story, selling the pitch around what we've actually been doing. And all of our trade press has been quickly aligned. And, it is early days, but we've really seen some positive industry stats. We're well above industry stats for open and click-through, and it's really suggesting that customers are actually responding well to the change and well to the way that we actually want to approach the way that we do business with our customers. But ultimately for us, it was all about meeting our objectives around how do we align with sales, how do we make sure we've got a reason for them to call, and most importantly, how do we make sure we've got the ammunition for them to sell. I just really wanted to come up with a couple of things around key learnings. You've heard me kind of talk about some of the output and the deliverables, but it's really about the so what, how would you go about approaching it? And I guess three things that we learned, if it's of any use to people, is, first of all, our methodology around the way we approach our how and our what. I think it was just the way that everyone else has probably usually did. Pretty standard, right approach, engaging the right teams across the business to understand what we actually do. But focusing on the why enabled us to really focus on the backdrop of the issues that we had. How do we actually enable us to actually really get to the answer quite quickly? How do we make sure that our resource and our budget aligns to why we do what we do for our customers? And it's helped us focus both upwards and outwards in terms of the capability that we've done. So all three, the what, the how, and the why, is really critical. The second point is really around this recognition. Is pretty obvious to say, but nothing can change in an organisation if people don't get it. So we spent, as a leadership team, quite a lot of time working with our market leadership team, so our wholesale exec board, really understanding what it was important to them in the context of the framework that I've just described to everyone. And importantly, how this can help shape not only the external collaboration at a senior exec level, but importantly about how does it help some of our people programs. And I referenced some of the cultural and the business change that we've set the part of the framework for. I mean, there's loads more work to be done there, but it's really positive to see, it's a positive reinforcement of the work that we've done to see it actually be integrated in some of our more strategic people programs. And I guess the final point is, it's a journey. Stay with it was my final point on the slide. There's a lot of positives to take from the approach that we've taken. There's no way that it's complete. It is a journey. It's been a testing time. There's been an incredible amount of time, something that I'm very proud of for all of our team and all of the integration that they've done. But, we were stealing and borrowing people's time over the last quarter, and we were calling on them for massive input, for sign-off, for, confirmation of stats, facts, figures, etc. But the true thing around everything was the coordination around keeping that truth around we make it possible and why does that exist for our customers. And I'm under no doubt that the ability to be successful has been due to the ability about how everything has been connected. How have we been able to articulate our approach, the framework, and the way that we want to move our business forward in the way that what is the role for everyone to play in that journey. Otherwise, I guess they would, why would they care was the question. And for us as a team, I mean, I know as previous sales into marketing, it's pretty tough sometimes to actually make sure that our ambitions are met, whilst at the same time feeling actually that you're getting rewarded for the work that you're doing. And one of the biggest, most positive things that I see both when I talk to the team and myself when people come up to me is the fact that quite often they'll relay our ambitions back. They'll be relaying our ambitions back to them, and they'll be saying to us, how does it fit to the pillar of capability, or we must make sure it means we make it possible for this in the customer. And that, a true sense of pride around the thing that we've actually, been able to achieve in such a short period of time. We know it's not perfect. We know we've got a huge piece of work, certainly in our online capability, but certainly from our campaigns, our sales enablement program, our events, and the presentations and the way that people are focused on things, it's absolutely been a step change in terms of the way that we want to focus, and importantly, how we want to talk and work with our customers moving forward. And ultimately, giving customers something really powerful and positive to say, having a business conversation, and a really compelling reason to call.
Thank you so much, Tor, for that fantastic story. It's a great example of where putting your why at the heart of what you do gives you so much clarity, and the difference is visible immediately. I'm sure many of you are thinking, that's great, but it sounds like a load more work, and where do I even start? How do I do it? Well, first of all, I would say decide if this matters to you. If you can see you could benefit from this, clear diary for a day, an afternoon, a few hours, whatever, commit to it. Then, like most things, breaking it down into sizable chunks helps. So we're suggesting a combination of the following. Firstly, read through your company messaging and values. Look at the web, watch your CEO videos or commentary, look at your corporate messaging, and look for the following things. Do you already have a why? Is the messaging focused on how, or is it focused on what? Is there a why in there and that jumps out of you but just isn't being said? Challenge your current thought processes. If you notice the messaging is based on what and how, you've established you haven't articulated your why. The second thing is around gathering evidence on where the why could help you. Look for messaging inconsistency. Look for Me Too messaging. Look for confusion. Look for areas where having a why will help you mean something more to your audience. One of those reasons that springs to mind to me is one of the areas that you were talking about in the things that matter for you is around campaigns, around social media. These are absolutely areas where meaning something more to your audience will give you more traction and more stickiness. I'm going to talk you through some more examples of why activity next. But the third step of the process, we would say, is bring people together and workshop it. As Tor says, it's important to bring your stakeholders with you. So why don't you start with your peers or your team, work out what the why will give you, and then take it upwards. The result will be worth it. It will give you a focus and a clarity for everything you do. And don't forget the value to your personal reputation it will bring. If you want to find out more about the Golden Circle, try reading Simon Sinek's Start with the Why, or go to YouTube and watch his TED presentation. Both are very easy to read or watch. So, when you've got to your why, where can you apply it to cut down the noise, to make a positive difference? You may recognise this process as something your sales teams follow when they're responding to tenders. This process has changed significantly over the last few years. Analysts such as Gartner are now playing strategic roles in the identification of tender responders and even in their shortlist selection. So now getting on the tender list is the first goal of the sales team. It's not even taken as read now in some of the larger organisations we're seeing. So analysts look for those things that they can benchmark against. Using their commentary in certain areas, for example, Gartner used Magic Quadrant, they look for capability, they look for reach, service delivery, and of course price. Yet here's the thing. They're now also monitoring how organisations approach and implement go-to-market strategies. During the bid process itself, your organisation needs to stand out as different in the additional value it adds to the tendering client, and it needs to do this consistently in all the areas shown in the process. You've already heard from Tor about how developing a why has helped BT Wholesale align its capabilities into a story that is both compelling and easily understood. Imagine the impact if this alignment flowed from your analyst relations, through your campaigns and sales enablement programs, into your presentations, online assets, and even into your case studies. Each one of these items linked to a compelling why would stand out with a common purpose and would appeal to your customers' buying values. Think back to that Apple example. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I can almost hear people shouting into the microphone now, yeah, make it really easy in a business-to-consumer environment. But let us not forget, people buy from people. So if your target customer's decision-making unit were torn between two seemingly equal proposals, yet one was aligned to a common purpose, a compelling why, which one do you think they would choose? And it's just as relevant in a proactive sales situation, where you might be running a marketing program or a campaign, or your account team is making a new approach. In this instance, your sales team needs something to say, something that's based on a business conversation and takes the client on a journey through to a sale. Your client will want to check this information, probably doing online research, reading case studies, and speaking to client references. They will check your messages for consistency and how they resonate as they talk your proposal through with other stakeholders. They will compare you to your competition. Go back to Jenny's market trends earlier. Working with sales on nurturing leads as well as generating them is the way that marketing is moving. I've put win-loss into both examples here because they can play a major role in demonstrating how well the why works and where to turn up the volume in the sales cycle. Including your why into each of the activities I listed across this whole process will improve their performance. Including it in all of these activities and prioritizing their content that brings out the messages will massively improve your marketing effort. And don't forget about those areas you said you were struggling with right now on focusing on noise, things like lead generation, marketing effectiveness, channel awareness, B2B campaigns and social media. They're ripe for a why. So at the beginning of this call, we promised you some things. We promised you one key idea to reduce the noise and overwhelm. That idea, if you probably haven't already guessed, is to develop a why for your organization. And if your organization already has one, to use the why as your guide on what you prioritize. We also promised you at least 3 ways that using this key idea will help your contribution to the business to stand out more. So we showed you how to go about developing your why. We showed you lots of different marketing activities where your why would make a difference. Tor gave you an example of the value making it possible made to BT Wholesale in its capability marketing and the challenges they went through to get there and the stages they went through to get there. And we showed you how garnering your marketing effort into delivering a consistent why in everything you do will not only make your organization stand out, it will make you stand out. So I really hope you've got something from this call that will help you. For us, we're now working over the summer to quantify the value of having a why and what it brings. So we're going to do that through a procurement director program. And I guess a lot of you think, okay, here it comes. What's the ask? Well, the ask is, would you like to join us in proving this stuff works? If so, all you need to do is to help us get an interview with your procurement director. The interview is to understand the difference why messages have on decision making. In return, we'll credit you in the study and you get to have full use of the whole program to use within your organizations. We'll send specific and further details in the email we send you with the recording of this call. So now I think we've got a few minutes left just to answer some of the questions you've been sending in during this call. We'll get to as many as we can in the time allowed. And if you haven't asked any but want to, go to the green bar at the top of the screen, click the little speech bubble icon and type in your question. If you don't get your question answered on this call, we promise that we'll send you a personal answer in the next couple of days. So I think, Jen, you're going to be looking at that?
I am indeed, and we have already had one, but it's not for your me, Dot, it's for Tor. It's saying, Tor, in all honesty, how much extra time did this whole process take for you, and has it actually made you and your team more efficient?
So in terms of time, I genuinely couldn't quantify a specific time, but I absolutely believe that the pain that we've gone through, which was increased probably effort, energy and time in terms of getting the mass of teams, the collaboration, the dialogue and the whole series of approach at the very beginning was pretty time-centric. But moving forward, what it has absolutely done is it's set a framework, which I said that people have actually come back to us that are actually almost self-editing. They know that they're already thinking about, well, the approach and the questions they should be asking before they're even kind of coming to us. And so for us, in the longer or certainly the mid-term, from a portfolio dialogue between portfolio marketing and sales, it's certainly now starting to reap the rewards and expedite that process. So I couldn't give you a time frame, but I could certainly say that the starting point, you do have to spend quite a lot of time to get people on that journey. But once we're now on the journey, I think it's making the focus and the clarity and expediting it somewhat to help us, reduce those lead times that historically we would have had going round and round the houses, still not coming out with any coherent message.
Thank you for asking that question. We do actually have another one that's come through. So the second question is, you talk about our why being why we get out of bed in the morning. Does this mean me as a marketing manager to then influence the organization, or should we look to identify the organization's why first? So I think that what that person is asking is, should I be working on my own role why, or should I be encouraging the organization to work out their why? I think, Dot, have you got a perspective on that?
I think it's related to all of those things. I think we all have a personal why, or maybe we don't. I think you could apply it to yourself. Why do I do what I do, and what does it give me? I also think that, for an organisation to have a why is an aligning factor. Where you start with, who knows? But if you I can only speak from the Fresheye example of having seen the whole process. We found that giving people our common purpose did two things. It helped people join or not join. So if they don't relate to our values and what we're after and our why, then they're probably it's not gonna meet their own whys when they get up in the morning. The second thing was, by understanding where we're going and why we're doing what we're doing, people, I think, as I said earlier, are much more happier in terms of what they're doing. So in answer to the questions, I think you could start at any point. I don't think you have to do any of them. It could be more of a philosophical question on why do you do what you do as an individual in terms of your career. It could be a means of rationalising your workload or what you want to focus on in terms of your role within that organisation. Or you could tackle the really big one, like Tor has, which is what's the why for my organisation. So I think it's got value and merit in all three of those things.
Excellent. Okay, no, it would appear we've been so efficient. We've answered all your questions in the presentation itself. So thank you very much for those two people who did send us a question. We appreciate that. And now I'm going to hand over to Dot to wrap up.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and so much for your participation. And double thank you for Tor for a really brilliant presentation and a real insight into what it takes to get it done in a large organisation. We hope you've enjoyed this session, as we really have had some fun in developing it for you. As we said earlier, we'll send you a recording of this webinar in the next few days, so you can watch it again and listen to the points you think you missed or share it with other people. I recognise that some people, we haven't been able to cover everything they asked or raised in their questions before the call, but I do commit that we will answer as many of those in the next session in the autumn. So we haven't forgotten about you. We've obviously had to try and align. We've got an awful lot of responses. We had to align what we could into something we could cover within the time frame. So we haven't forgotten about you or indeed ignored you. Those things that you raised, we will use and make sure we will cover them in the next session. So thank you again to everybody, and look forward to hearing you next time. Bye-bye.